I never imagined my life would revolve around copper pans, crushed thyme, and the rhythm of prep knives echoing off stainless steel. But at 42, the kitchen was more than just my workplace. It was my kingdom. As head chef at one of Chicago's most acclaimed restaurants, I lived for the chaos, the pressure, and the electric heartbeat of a dinner rush. And then there was Andrew, my son. He was 14 when I first noticed it. Not just the usual teenage curiosity, but a kind of quiet obsession with sugar and structure. While other boys were devouring video games, Andrew was perfecting his pastry crusts, swirling ganache like he'd been born holding a spatula. I'd come home from a 16-hour shift, exhausted and raw, only to find our kitchen dusted in flour and the scent of caramel hanging thick in the air. I remember the first time he asked if he could help me at the restaurant. "Mom, do you think I could? I don't know. Be useful? Even just desserts." I looked at him, tall for his age, but still boyish, bright eyes full of hope. And behind it, the unmistakable hunger of someone who wanted to belong. "Come in Saturday," I said. "But if you burn anything, you're scrubbing pans until midnight." He grinned.
Deal.
That Saturday changed everything. I watched him from behind the line, pretending I wasn't watching at all. He wore his apron too loose, fumbled with piping bags, and got powdered sugar on the sleeves of his black chef's coat. But he was brilliant. Not in the loud, show-off way some kids are, but in the quiet precision of someone who got it. He didn't just follow recipes. He felt them. I praised him constantly. "Nice job on the meringue, Drew." He lit up. "Yeah? I was worried I overbeat it." "You didn't. The peaks are perfect." From then on, the kitchen became our common language. When other parents talked about football games and college prep, I was showing my son how to balance acidity in a citrus tart or fold chocolate mousse without collapsing the air. By 17, he was coming with me every weekend. At 19, he became my unofficial Sous pastry chef. And now, at 21, he was no longer just my son in the kitchen. He was a presence.
Charismatic. Talented. Confident.
Sometimes too confident. It started small. A wink when I complimented his plating. A sly comment when we brushed past each other in the narrow galley kitchen. "Careful, Mom," he teased one day as I leaned over to adjust a tray in the oven. "You're distracting me." I rolled my eyes. "You're just easily distracted." "Maybe. But not by just anyone." I laughed, brushing it off. Boys flirt. It's harmless. But my laughter came out a little too tight. There was something about the way his gaze lingered just a beat longer than necessary, something unspoken but impossible to ignore. I tried to shut it down, reframe it, pretend it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. The kitchen was our stage, and over time, our conversations deepened. We joked more,
Teased more.
stood a little closer than we used to. One rainy afternoon, he was tempering chocolate while I prepared a truffle base. I reached for the cream just as he did, and our fingers touched. It was brief, innocent, but neither of us moved right away. His eyes met mine. "You always take the best ingredients." I swallowed.
I taught you that.
"I know," he said softly. "That's why I like working with you." There was again that look, somewhere between admiration and something more complex, something harder to name. I pulled my hand back. "Focus on the chocolate." He smiled. "Yes, chef." But that smile stayed with me for the rest of the day.
It unsettled me.
Because I realized I was thinking about it, not just as a mother but as a woman who hadn't felt seen like that in years. Andrew had grown up, and I had watched every step of it. But now, he looked at me like he was discovering something new. And what scared me most was that a part of me was discovering something, too. I started spending more time at the restaurant on my days off. Not because there was work to do, though in a kitchen like mine there always was, but because distance felt easier than the silence of our shared apartment. Andrew lived with me while finishing his culinary degree downtown. It was practical, convenient, familiar. But lately, that familiarity was starting to shift. It wasn't anything dramatic. It was the quiet kind of change, the way his voice lowered when we spoke late at night in the kitchen, lingering over cups of tea instead of sleep. The way he started calling me Sil, when no one else was around. It should have felt strange.
It did.
But I didn't correct him. It made me feel younger somehow. I told myself I was imagining it, that I was just tired, that I was flattered, sure, but that didn't mean anything. I was his mother, his mentor, his anchor. And yet, there was a moment.
Small.
But everything changed after it. It was a Tuesday afternoon, the kind of damp spring day where the rain never quite lets up. Business was slow, and we were experimenting with a new dessert menu. I was at the main counter, testing a lemon thyme custard, and Andrew stood behind me, his sleeves rolled up, fingers stained faintly with blackberry reduction. He was watching me work. I could feel it, his eyes on the nape of my neck, my hands, the way I stirred the cream gently, patiently. "You always look so serious when you're in the zone," he said. "I am serious. This custard is going to make or break the new pairing." "It's not just the custard," he said quietly. I don't know. You have this way of moving. Like everything matters." I turned, unsure how to respond. His gaze didn't drop. It held mine, steady, quiet, and far too intimate. There was flour on his cheek. Without thinking, I reached up to brush it away. My thumb lingered just a second too long. He didn't flinch.
Didn't laugh.
He just looked at me like he was waiting for me to say something I didn't know how to say. "You've grown up," I said softly. "I know." He took a step closer. The air changed, thicker now, sweet and tense like sugared cream just before it scorches. "Sometimes," he murmured, "I wonder if you see that." "I see it." My voice was too soft, too exposed. His eyes searched mine. "Then why do you keep pretending nothing's changed?" My breath caught. I turned back to the counter, hands trembling just slightly as I poured the custard into its dish. "Because I don't know what to do with that." He didn't press. He never did. But the silence between us after that wasn't the same. The next few days passed with an awkward grace. We were polite, professional. But every time our fingers brushed while passing a whisk, every time his laughter echoed just a little too long, I felt that same tension weaving itself tighter into our rhythm. One night, I stayed at the restaurant late, thinking I was alone. I was plating samples when I heard the door creak and his voice drifted in. "You should lock up, Sil. This city never sleeps." I looked up. He stood in the doorway, hair damp from the mist outside, jacket slung over his shoulder. "You waited for me?" He shrugged. "Didn't feel right leaving you here alone." "I've been alone here hundreds of nights. Not since I started coming with you." I smiled despite myself. "You're good in the kitchen." I learned from the best. That made me falter. I turned away, busying myself with the sugar work. "Don't say things like that." "Why not?" "Because it sounds like more than it should." He stepped beside me. "Close. Too close. Maybe it is more." His words landed like a warm draft in a cold room. I froze. This was Andrew, my son. And yet, in this moment, he wasn't just that.
He was a man.
One who saw me not just as a mentor or a mother, but as something else entirely. And the worst part? I didn't recoil. I didn't reject it. I just stood there, letting the sweetness of the custard cool beside the heat building between us. I was losing the recipe. The ingredients didn't make sense anymore. But I couldn't stop tasting the possibility of something I knew I shouldn't want. For weeks, we danced around it. In the restaurant, we were model professionals. Chef and pastry assistant. Mother and son. Our movements rehearsed, words measured. But at home, the air was different. Denser. Like a pot left too long on the stove, bubbling under the surface, waiting to boil over. Andrew became bolder. He'd lean in when showing me a plate design, letting his breath brush my cheek. His compliments came richer now, laced with quiet admiration, never crossing a line, but always skimming the edge. "Your hands," he said once while I shaped pasta dough at the counter. "You move like you're painting. Like it's art." I looked up, startled. "You always say food is art," he added. "I think that's why it's so hard to stop looking at you when you're working." I should have said something, scolded him, but I didn't. Instead, I whispered, "That's enough, Andrew," and turned away, though my heart beat wildly in my chest for hours. We began lingering at the restaurant after hours. The rest of the staff would leave, and it would be just us. Music low, oven warmth still clinging to the walls, and the glow of city lights pressing in from the windows. One night, I found him sitting in my station, reading through my old notebook of recipes. He looked up as I entered, holding the page gently, as if it were something sacred. "You wrote these by hand," he said. "Even back then. No computers, no files. Just pen and instinct." "They were mine," I replied. "My little secrets." He smiled, closing the book softly. "I've always wanted to know all your secrets. Some things are better left unknown." "I don't agree." I leaned against the prep table, arms crossed, trying to maintain the space between us. But his voice, low, warm, familiar, closed the distance anyway. "I used to watch you," he said. "Even before I started helping here. You didn't know it, but I'd sit at the edge of the hallway and just watch." I blinked. "Watch what?"
You.
"How you moved. How you solved things no one else could. You weren't just making food, you were creating. It was like watching magic. And I thought, God, I want to be near that. I want to understand it. I want to be like her." My breath caught. "Andrew, I thought it would go away, this feeling," he continued, almost to himself. "That once I started working here, once I got closer, it would fade. But it didn't." My hands trembled where they rested on the countertop. "You don't know what you're saying." "Yes, I do." I turned, facing the dish sink, trying to summon strength. But his reflection hovered in the metal, quiet and waiting. He stepped closer. "Tell me it's wrong," he whispered. "Tell me and I'll stop." I could feel him behind me, close but not touching. A single breath between restraint and surrender. "It is wrong," I whispered back. "But that doesn't mean I haven't felt it too." The words left my mouth before I could stop them. And the moment they did, the air changed. Again.
He didn't reach for me. Didn't speak.
He just stood there, absorbing it like a confession. A truth laid bare at last. Later that night, I found him in the apartment kitchen, barefoot, making coffee like nothing had happened. He handed me a cup without a word, his fingers grazing mine as he did. We sat at the table, in silence, both holding something too heavy to name. And I realized, the line hadn't just blurred. We had crossed it, not with hands or lips, but with truth. And once spoken, some truths cannot be unspoken. The night after our shared truth, Andrew and I existed like shadows, neither confronting what was said, nor denying it. That fragile piece held between us like spun sugar, beautiful, trembling, and perilously easy to shatter. We kept working together. The restaurant was our cover, our ritual. But now there was a rhythm beneath the rhythm, a silent beat we both moved to. He'd reach for the cinnamon just as I did. Our eyes would lock when we tasted something at the same time, our words slowing, fingers brushing, holding just a second longer than necessary. It was a private language, one we had never learned, but somehow always known. Then came the gala. Every spring, the restaurant hosted a private event for critics, investors, and select guests. I'd curated it for years, but this time, I gave Andrew full control of dessert. His menu was bold: deconstructed peach galette with rosemary cream, lavender brittle, and smoked vanilla. "You're trusting me with this?" he asked, his voice unusually quiet. I looked at him, not as a child, not even as my son, but as a man who had earned this. "I trust you with everything," I said.
And I did.
That was the dangerous part. The gala buzzed with elegance and wine. Guests in silk and satin filled the candlelit dining room, laughter woven through the scent of thyme and charred lemon. Andrew moved through the kitchen like he belonged there, confident, graceful, eyes darting between stations, sleeves rolled, a streak of cream on his collarbone. I watched from the far prep table, and something caught in my chest.
Pride.
And something else. Later, when the last plate had left the kitchen, and the applause for dessert drifted in from the dining room, he came to me. "Come see," he said, a boyish grin tugging at his lips. "They're obsessed with it." But I didn't move. I was gripping the counter, unable to look away from him. "You did it." He shrugged. "You believed in me."
No.
"You did that yourself." His eyes softened, stepping closer. "Syl." It slipped out again, my name, not Mom. Just Syl, like he was calling something unspoken forward. "I can't keep pretending this is normal," he said. "I'm trying. But I feel like I'm going to explode." I closed my eyes. "We shouldn't." "But we are," he interrupted, voice low. "Every time we talk. Every look. Every second in this kitchen." I turned away, gripping the edge of the counter. "You think I don't feel it too? You think I don't lie awake asking how this happened? Then why are we pretending?" "Because we're not supposed to feel this way." His voice was suddenly soft. "But what if we do?" I opened my mouth, but no words came. The next day, I didn't go into the restaurant. I stayed home trying to cook something meaningless, oatmeal, eggs, anything, but my hands shook too much. Everything tasted off. Everything felt off. Until I heard the door. It was him. He stood there, in the hallway of the apartment we had shared for years. He looked like he always did after the dinner rush, tired, flushed, glowing. "You weren't at work," he said. "I know. I needed to see you. Andrew." He stepped forward. "Just listen." And then, gently, he set something on the table, a dessert. A plate of his gala dish, carefully composed, still warm. "Do you remember when I was 14? He asked. "I burned the sugar, and you made me try again. 5 times. And I did. Because of you." I nodded. "I've spent every year, since then, trying to be good enough. For your praise. For your approval. But somewhere along the way, I stopped wanting to be like you, and started just wanting you." My breath trembled. He continued. "You can send me away. You can say this was a mistake. And I'll go. But you need to know this wasn't just curiosity. It wasn't confusion. You're the only thing I've ever felt sure of." I stepped toward the plate, the dessert a quiet offering between us. "Do you know what this tastes like?" I asked, picking up the spoon. He shook his head. "Like longing. And risk. And something I shouldn't crave, but can't help but want." He watched me, every part of him still. "I don't know what comes next," I said softly. "But I can't ignore this anymore." I didn't touch him. He didn't move. But something shifted in that moment. A gate, a wall, a weight. We stood there in the stillness, on the edge of something dangerous and sacred. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel afraid.